a stereo, it beats for you, so listen close. Hear my thoughts in every note.
Hi everyone, we are Steffi Avilés, Alexandra Cahuana, Ronald Carrillo, Paula Soto, and Patricia Villacres. We are discuss about the unit number 2. Next, please. Okay. A teacher has drilled students in the structure known as indirect questions. Do you know where my book is? Do you have what time is it? And did he tell you what time is it? As a direct result of the drills, all students in the class were able to produce the structure correctly in class. After class, a student came up to the teacher and asked, "Do you know where is Mr.'s living?" In other words, only minutes after the class, in spontaneous speech, the student used the structure practice in the class incorrectly. Describe what you think the reason is for this issue. Had the lesson been a waste of time? How might you go about finding answers to these questions? Please give me an opinion about those questions, Alexandra.
Okay. First, I don't think that it's a misunderstanding or maybe they lost the class, because most of the students understand the content, but they don't really focus what is the lesson about. For example, they don't know what is an indirect question, but they are able to use it. And that answer to the second question, that is, if that isn't a waste of time. Most we're referring to the third question.
Yes.
I will say that many teachers have any doubts about this due to they have put all the effort on the class, and maybe children would understand a part of it, but maybe they focus only in the descriptive grammar and more or less because they understand referring to the context.
Okay, thank you. The next, please. The next slide, please. Consider the distinction between second language acquisition and foreign language learning as discussed in the last video. Take the position that they are fundamentally different. How you define this position? Ali, please.
That sounds really interesting because, for example, acquisition is a subconscious and intuitive process, as the video mentioned, while learning is a conscious process that the students are aware of their learning process and what is expected of them. So I think that it's a bit different referring to that, because it also mentioned that there are two areas in the brain that can focus on this kind of learning. For example, there was the weaker area, I think, and it was in charge to develop the learning. And I learned a lot of this video because learning is the basic structure of language, and it's important learning grammar and, for example, syntax, because children learn to speak through natural communication since they were babies, and they acquire a general fluency on their own language, so they can use it when they are adults. They can learn the grammar after some years and use it properly in society, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely according with you. This is about the position of the syntax, pragmatics, all these elements for that the language has a function in a future learner, today's learner. Thank you for your points of view.
Okay, there's a quite interesting topic related to that. So the third question is, we are going to consider the difference between child language acquisition and adult second language acquisition. For example, we have a phrase, maybe it's an utterance because as you can see, it is no order. For example, that toy boy is playing with. It's really confusing for us as we are learners, second language learners, or foreign language learners, as we mentioned. And so we know, we learn with prescriptive grammar that it's wrong, but babies learn in that way. And it's simple to differentiate how a children view can understand the meaning. In some cases, we don't understand this because the phrase is grammatical incorrect. So, for example, do you think that this comment is also valid for adults when they are learning a second language acquisition? Do you think that errors can be allowed during the learning process or during the acquisition process? What do you think, Ronald?
Well, to answer your question, I could learn about that there are the two main differences is about the second language acquisition and language learning. It is because children used to acquire the language. However, the adults used to learn the second language. In that way, it could be allowed that in the both ways, the children and adults should have these kind of mistakes on their sentence because they are learning and also acquiring a new language. Even a child could learn from to listen in different kind of sentences. Their parents and maybe their environment that all of them are in it, they should apply these kind of sentences in other ones that they want to express another kind of ideas.
And that's true because all normal humans acquire a language in the first few years, and the knowledge is acquired in an unconscious way. So it's important to think that very young children learn how to form particular grammar structure, such relative clause or any other thing um, as they way, learning from their parents. Maybe they hear a word or a sentence and they try to put together and to form a sentence, maybe. And it's relevant that in this sense, learning a language is a complex knowledge. So we have um, some troubles in our native language and is learning unconscious. So what do we expect to learn when we are learning a foreign language? Can you, the next slide, please? Thank you. There's another question related to that, and is, do you think that an adult needs a conscious learning, tell grammar or about relative clause or what other, or any other topic before being able to use spontaneously in interlanguage? For example, we are talking in English and we change to Spanish. It's important to learn the same topic in English and the same topic in Spanish, but they have different rules. What do you think, Ronald? It's relevant, this kind of question?
Well, for this question, I could think that an adult could learn by different ways. However, it is important when an adult has, for example, in this part of the section, we have that an adult could learn by different ways, but it is not important because when he's traveling to another place, he should learn by acquiring something that he wants to learn. For example, maybe vocabulary of traveling, or maybe something that helps him or her to arrive or reach a main goal. However, learning grammar, it could be a kind of complex because when you are answering a question, you are gonna to stop and think all the whole words that you are going to speak in that moment, and that is could be a little lose of the time.
And that's true. For example, maybe children could use a full form sentence which includes a relative clause without being able to articulate the function of relative clause. And that's a little bit funny because we, as foreign language learners, we couldn't understand how to use it. For example, a relative clause is one to connect the main clause of sentence by words such as who, whom, which, that, or whose. We have many errors on that. And maybe children know how to use because they learn by descriptive grammar and they understand what they are saying. While we produce a sentence with all the correct grammar, with all the descriptive that a teacher told us, but we couldn't understand what we are saying. The next slide, please. Okay. That's a quite interesting topic related to fossilization. For example, that are main reasons for fossilization in interlanguage. The first one is frequent use. For example, we learn a language, French or English, and we forgot it for 1 or 2 months, maybe less time, and we forgot words, we forgot the grammatical structure, and we confused everything. Another is the reinforcement of communication process, which is relevant because in that way we practice the language. If we don't talk or maybe write something, we forgot it in some months. and tests a main point called the lack of correction. For example, it is sometimes called a misunderstanding in words. For example, a teacher can pronounce a word in a bad way, and the student have this pronunciation along the school, and it can cause many troubles when they are adults because they can't pronounce the word in a correct way. And the last one is the inadequate learning environment. For example, many people are crowded in school and they can learn any language, or maybe they couldn't hear any word, but they have to pass, so they study for the test. And it's not that way. We have to acquire the knowledge and try to practice. Ronald, what do you think that it's the main reason for fossilization?
It will be the way that all of us, we are immersed in different kind of, learning a new language has different kind of ways to learn it. So we should apply different in this in this way we have to choose the best one that we have to do. Fossilization in the interlanguage, however, it could be a process in which all of them we are immersed, because in this way we have to analyze all the main topic and all the whole ideas that we have to interpret of, not only about us. So the idea that our partner is gonna to tell us, by the way, in the same way.
Yeah, and that's true because, for example, interlanguage fossilization refers to a certain mistakes that it seems to be impossible to correct, as, for example, sound system morphology or something like that. In spite of the ability and motivation, learners cannot rectify on the places with a correct use. And it people when they don't practice the language. And I think that, for example, the frequent use is the most common reason for fossilization of language.
Well, by the way, I think that all of the people that are immersed in this kind of process, they should to motivate by themselves to understand the new language and also the new vocabulary, because the language needs to refresh every single moment at every single part of our lives to understand different kind of things. Also, to improve the vocabulary, because if we don't have the necessary tools to express an idea, it could be hard to maintain the same topic in the same idea in the same way.
Okay, we have to go with another topic.
Okay. For this topic, we had about the second language syntactic knowledge. In this part, we have to describe the types of knowledge that the individuals have to about the sentence of their native language. We noted that it has a differentiation between the people who are learning a language and the people who acquired a language. For that way, it could be most of the time we refer of the people who acquired a language and native language speakers. In this way, we have two different examples. First of all, we have that the students ended an academic note to a teacher with this spontaneous interlanguage blessing, such as the wish peace be with you. And other kind of students of the same particular university who were then asked to produce a blessing into a non-spontaneous text, produced many variations, including this one, the wish pays be to you. Next slide, please. For that situation, we could apply different kind of variation, but what kind of variation the students of this university of the same place that they are in it, for what reason could be this kind of variation? As for example, it is the same sort of variation maybe? Maybe Paola, could you help me? Paola Villacres?
Okay, I think that it's the same type of variation, even if it is constructed in a different way, because I think that according to the way we express the sentence, its meaning will vary since each person develops that expression in a different way.
Yeah, and how do you think that they did affect their answer in the way that they answered the question of their teacher?
Okay, it depends on the goal that we are going to achieve with this question, or the answer that the students say. For example, if we want another end of the conversation, we can ask a question in a different way that has another meaning.
Yeah, and for the last question, could you tell me in what ways is similar or different to native language speaker knowledge? Oh, I'm sorry for the interruption. If I have to record that we have two statements, that we have the first one, we have which pace be with you, and the second one is which pace be to you.
Okay, the native speakers use a more contracted variation to simplify the sentence, more instead of having to be redundant, and they go to straight to the point, that is, they speak in a fluent and fast way without so many details.
Yeah, and that was all about that topic. Next one, please.
Okay. In this chapter, we discuss possible motivating factors for the study of second language acquisition. Okay, what other reasons mean there before investigating how second languages are learned? Okay, what do you think, Paola, about this question?
Okay, the second language learning needs to the learned LT grammar to generate appropriate correct language, since the mistakes we make when communicating incorrectly by using the grammar, this will generate a different meaning and will not make sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because we have another reasons to investigate how a second language is learner, is that we should emphasize that there is a knowledge deficit in the grammar of the foreign language, since what non-native speakers say is grammatically incorrect. However, we think it is correct, and we continue to commit the same mistakes. And this brings us problem that we often commit from childhood and until adult, we cannot change the mistake. Next, please. Okay, following our English translation of composite writing by two scholar children in their native language, Tatar, and composition writing by the same children in Russian, their L2. Okay, the question number one is about what kind of information these children include their own and description of these pictures. Okay. The kind of information that the children include in these pictures as descriptive pictures and evaluative pictures because we have a lot of details in the image that the children had. Okay. Okay, what similars and difference are these between the NL and TL versions of these pictures? Okay, we find the similarities. The two children describe that in the school year there is a large garden. Okay, in the difference that we have many differences. Yeah, because we have the children are working in there, and the child one said the garden is big. There are trees in the garden. Okay. Okay, these differences are bigger according to how each child sees the landscape and what details they add according to their description. Okay. Paola, please, could you tell me what are the versions that we have in these pictures that the learners have in NL and TL versions, please?
Okay, the children from LL, when describing the image do sound totally described way, since they make the contrast between what the image express and what they feel when beginning the contact with the nature, since they describe in detail what they imagine in way, spontaneously everything that springs means of them. However, the L2 students describe their image in an educative way, since they only describe what they see the image, that the details are the animal, and go straight to the point, only what they see.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because the children that their L1 have a lot of details, but the children that L2 don't say many details and have one point of view. Thank you.
Okay, in this moment we can see the video.
In this next module, we want to discuss an important language teaching principle that comes from understanding the difference between acquisition and learning. While both can be good, in learning languages, there is a big difference between acquisition and learning, and the two concepts don't really get along. In one corner, you have learning. Learning involves the ability to comprehend and recall information as it is given to you, much like what occurs for most classes. You read from a book, you have discussions, you try to understand the principles, and show your understanding through some kind of testing. In the other corner, you have acquisition. Acquisition is much more than simple learning. Acquisition means that you not only learn, but apply those principles in the real world. And when it comes to language learning, acquisition is truly the only way to measure student success. This means that you are able to not only understand and recognize vocabulary, words, and grammar tenses, but you can also use the linguistic structures you have learned in a way that is fluid and automatic. In some sense, the idea behind acquisition is that after you leave the comfy confines of a classroom, you can actually use the language you were given to speak, write, listen, and read in real contexts and under real circumstances. Thus, in language teaching, acquisition wins over learning every time.
Okay. In this case, we have the language acquisition and the language learning. In the language acquisition, we have any child without the cognitive disabilities can learn on a language with the disease. No adult can learn the second language as and free. All human beings have an innate capacity to learn the language. Vocabulary is the most important part of the learning the second language, and the learning a second language takes not more time than learning the first language. In this case, when the children acquire the language in the same way, regardless of what language that use or the number of the language they use, acquiring the language is like learning to play a game. Children must learn the rules of the language game. For example, how to articulate words or how to put them together in the ways that are acceptable to the other people around them. In order to understand the child language acquisition, we need to keep two very important things in mind. The first, the children do not use the language like adults because the children are not adults. Acquire language is rather lengthy process and one that involves a lot of the apparent errors. We will see below that these errors are then in fact not errors at all, but a necessary part of the process of the language acquisition. That is, they shouldn't be correct because they will disappear in time. Second, children will learn to speak the dialects and language that are used around them. The children usually begin by speaking like their parents or carnivores by once they start non-mix. When you cannot control the way when the children speak, they will develop their own accents and they will learn the language they think they need. If you don't like the local accents, you will either have to put within the or move or to somewhere with accents you like. On the other hand, if you don't like your own accent and prefer the local one, you will be happy, and the child also learn the local grammar he or she do not eat or never go there. Okay, in the other, we have the language learning. In this case, we have the learning a second language is a matter of learning a new set of habits. The only reason that some people cannot learn a second or foreign language is that they insufficiently motivate. All the children can learn the second language accent-free, and vocabulary is the most difficult part of the language and the second language. And the language instruction is a waste of time. In this case, the second language acquisition is the learning and acquisition of the second language was another thought. First language acquisition is established. In this case, it is a semantic study how the people learn a language other than their mother tongue. And the second language acquisition is the process of learning other language in addition the native language. For instance, the child who will speak the mother language start learning maybe English in the other countries. Okay. Okay. Are there words in your native language that you are not sure of meaning, or how many words do you know? Okay, in this case, we have the different words. There are words that vary the meaning depends of the country, it's the culture. In this case, we have the words chat, avocado, and croissant. In French, the word chat means cat. In English, it means chat, talk with in the with a friendly and informal way. The word avocado in French means lawyer, and in English is a fruit. And finally, we have the word croissant. In French, it is a bread, and in English, it's become a granted size, amount, or degree growing. Steffi, what do you think about that?
Okay, in this case, we can see that words can vary depending on where we are saying. So they have a different meaning. For example, in Ecuador, the word Chinese it means a person of Asian origin. Meanwhile, in Colombia, it means child.
Okay, Steffi, I agree with you. This is that's all. Thank you for seeing the video.
Thanks for see ya.